What's up, guys? Welcome to session 3 of Linux Bash Scripting Intermediate Level. As always, I am your instructor, Kevin Downs. Be sure to follow us on social media such as Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other social media sites. And check out our other courses available on coding-bootcamps.com. Today we're going over how to write scripts. In the previous session, we went over process priority, background job, signals, traps, debug and exit, K-shell code processing, bash code processing, pausing, time and date, scheduling execution, run commands later, aliases, and how the shell finds a command and command history editing. Today, we're going over shell programming language, reserved words, how to write and run scripts, debugging, data types, using variables to typeset command, constants, special predefined variables, printing to the screen such as echo and print, accepting input with K-shell, accepting input with bash, arithmetic operators, floating point numbers, bitwise operators, grouping operations, binary, octal, and hexadecimal, indexed arrays, quoting, and command substitution. Let's go ahead and dive right in with what the shell programming language is. So simply put, a shell program is a text file that contains standard Unix and shell commands. It's also sometimes called a shell script. Each line in a shell program contains a single Unix command exactly as if you had typed them in yourself. The difference is that you can execute all the commands in a shell program simply by running the shell program, rather than typing all the commands within. Shell programs are interpreted and not compiled programs. This means when you run a shell program, a child shell is started. This child shell reads each line in the shell program and carries out the command on that line. When it has read all the commands, the child shell finishes. Okay, so you guys, simply put, a shell script is no different than you typing out each command line by line. What the shell script does is it allows you to type it all up and then run it, and it's going to run all those commands one by one for you without having to type it in one at a time, okay? That might actually be a little less convenient than just typing it all out at one time, okay? But just as this says, the shell script is an interpreter, not a compiler, okay? So it's still reading it line by line, character by character, just as if it were on the regular command line. So to be truly useful, a programming language must provide the following services. 1, it needs comments, it needs variables, it needs conditional commands, and it needs repeated action commands. These extra services are provided by the shell, and different shells use different syntax for these services. This means that a shell program written for the Bourne shell cannot be run by the C shell, though it can be run by the bash shell, okay? So it's saying that something written in bash shell may not necessarily be runnable in a C shell, or maybe corn shell or something like that. Those are just examples. Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. But just keep in mind that when a script you write in bash or corn shell may not always carry out well to a different type of shell. Now we're going to talk about something called reserved words. There are almost 60 built-in commands and more than 20 reserved words in bash. Some of them are indispensable and some are rarely used in scripts. Some are used primarily at the command line and some are seldom seen anywhere else, okay? So meaning that sometimes things we use in scripts aren't really necessarily used on the command line and vice versa. Sometimes we only use things on command line, but they might not necessarily work well in a script. There are things called reserved words, and these can be seen below, okay? So things such as exclamation point, case, coprocess or coproc, do, done, else if or else, esac, which is how you end a case statement, fee, which is how you end an if statement, for, function, if, in, select, then, until, while. And then you have curly brackets, time, and you have square brackets, and you can even have parentheses, okay? So these are all reserved words, okay? Meaning that they're only used in the shell script, and that they have special meanings.